first things first in terms of a hook, the thing you need to understand, just like a slice pattern, the king of the hill is the club face. So if you're someone who hits a hook or curves a ball too far from right to left, you need to understand that you have a club face that's too closed to your path. Now, why is it too close? I have no idea why. It could be a lot of different things. Some of the things you have to look for would be grip. So obviously, if I took a normal setup, the stronger the grip, if it was really rotated clockwise, that would promote a more closed club face. I could do some things during my backswing that would close the club face, some things are down. So you have to figure out why it's closed and look at that. Maybe grip, maybe another piece. So check that part first. Your club face is too close to your path. We have to find out why. We have to start to correct that. Now, the second thing we see with the hook is the ball position. So if I were going to take a normal setup, I have an 8-iron here. For these short to mid irons, I like to see the ball position somewhere between my sternum location and my shirt logo. So somewhere in here to me would fall neutral. I would hardly never ever hit a full swing shot with the ball to the right of or behind my sternum location. Now for you guys that hit hooks or draws, typically that's associated with a ball position that's farther back. So you want to check this, meaning the more back the ball is in my stance, the more I'm going to catch the ball on the inside part of the arc and hit pushes and hooks. Okay, if I have the ball position more neutral, it would lessen that effect. If I had the ball position more forward, it would even lessen it more dramatically. So for me, someone who's hit hooks my whole life, I could always lessen my hook if I just move the ball more forward. So start with the simple stuff. Make sure your grip's not overly strong. Can you hit a draw, a normal shot, or a fade with a strong grip? Of course you could. Dustin Johnson and Brooks Koepka in the US Open were just hitting fades with strong grips. It's not impossible. I'm just saying as a stock pattern, make sure it's not overly strong. Check your club face first. Second, after you check your club face's ball position, make sure the ball's more forward, make sure it's not too far back. Do those things first if you hit a hook. Now, the second part, I'm going to shift gears here a little bit. Let's assume your club face is somewhat neutral and your grip's neutral. Let's assume your ball position's not too far back. The next part of the hook and what you have is a path that's overly inside out, right? So if I wanted to hit the biggest draw in the world, I'll go ahead and demonstrate one. Here would be I'll hit a neutral shot first. So here's a neutral path shot for me. And that's a pretty straight shot there. Now, if I wanted to hit a hook, the first thing I would do is I would kick my path much more from inside out. So I'd feel like I swing the club more from in here and I'd swing it out to the right more past impact. This would be my hook swing here. And that was probably about a 5-yard draw. So the path being to the right hits the hook. Now, obviously, if you're struggling with a hook, your path is too far to the right. What do? Well, before I put the practice stations in, some things you can do from the top of your backswing, and some people are gonna like it, some aren't, it doesn't matter. If you do these things and you feel and it work, do them and straighten your ball flight out. If I go to the top like this and I'm too far inside out, equal and opposite, what do I need to feel? I need to feel like I'm more over the top, more outside in. If you're way inside out and hitting hooks, you could feel way over the top and you'll probably hit the ball pretty darn straight. Okay, if I'm way underneath like this, you can actually feel like you steepen the shaft a little bit. Is that incorrect? No, it's not. If you feel like you steepen the shaft and it puts you just normal back on plane, that's perfectly fine. What else can you do from that? Well, something I do a lot when I play is I would feel the club exit more left past impact, and we'll get into that here in a minute. It's perfectly okay for me to feel like the club works more to the left. The more left it works past impact, the less it's going to draw, and the more that'll neutralize your ball flight pattern. So sort of quick things for you guys is feel the club more over the top, feel it work more left. Basically just do the opposite of your normal draw pattern. Okay, now drill wise, everybody likes drills. So a couple things. Number one, I have a range bucket here. So I'm going to set this up and I'll show you how I do that. So this is always my first thing I do with someone if they have a hook and they're swinging too far inside out is I'll put this bucket here. Now I've done some of this before on other platforms. So basically, and I'll show you at the end here how to set these pieces up, but essentially I have it halfway between my foot and the ball. I have it just underneath the angle that the club is on that I'm using. It's in my way. If I were to come down like this, I would hit it. So from a closer angle here, I would put the edge of the bucket roughly a club head, maybe slightly more than a club head from my toes. And then from down the line, I would take whatever club I'm using and I would angle it, put it flat on the ground, and I would want the bucket to be just under the angle that the club would naturally sit. So from the face-on angle, I want to put the front edge of the bucket in line with the middle of my toes. Anywhere ahead of that would be too far forward, and behind that would be too far back. I want to have the front of the bucket in line with the middle of my toes from face-on. And when you first start this, you want to definitely feel like it's in your way, and I would start with just little short ones. So I'm going to just do like a little 100-yarder. And when I do that and I exaggerate, that gives me just little baby fades. And just like the other drills, I do maybe half to 3/4 swings, 100 yards, 50%. Feel the club head working outside of this bucket. And that just gives me little baby fades when I do it. This is the first one I use with everyone across the board. You come in and see me, you have hooks, we do this first. Unless you're shanking it, then I don't throw synergies, but usually I would do this first all the time. This will be option number 1. Okay, option number 2 would be I just add a layer to that. So I have a alignment rod that has tape on it, and I would do the same thing as this, but now I'm gonna make it a little bit more difficult. So if I put the ball in here, take my normal setup. Now for this, I move this back a little bit farther, but it's still kind of in the same spot with the face-on view here. You can see the bucket's a little bit farther back. I set it up where it's roughly, again, I will pose this club parallel. I put it roughly halfway down the shaft. I want to make sure that I would never hit the stick with my hands back or down. So it's a little bit farther away, half to 3/4 of the way down the shaft. I take the club back where the club's parallel to the ground on my toe line, and I want to have that stick about an inch or two in front of that. This would be a little bit more exaggerated, again, from the top. If I get too dumped underneath, so I get this back a little bit more. If I get too dumped underneath, I'm gonna run into this stick. I wanna feel like the club stays a little bit more out in front of me, if you will. And I do the same thing. I'm gonna start short and slow and kind of work my way up. Keep the club more out in front. Excuse me. This one for me definitely feels a little bit more exaggerated than normal. So I'll just do one more. And what's going to happen again is you're not going to get that hook pattern. Excuse me. So if you're someone who comes way inside, this is going to feel way in your way. You're going to have to feel like the club's way outside going back. And I'm talking like way more in front and way more steep coming down. This would be practice session or station number 2 that I would use. And then the third one I would do, and when doing a hook and getting rid of a hook, you want to get rid of the club coming too far inside. You want to put a station behind the ball between your foot and the golf ball. So something in this area all the time is where you would do for a hook, and then you would do the opposite of that. So I would take this and go to the right of the target. This would be my last station I would do. This is one, I was just watching a video of Brooks Koepka for a little review we did, and he had this in front of him a couple months ago to help hit the fade. This is one of my go-tos. So you take a stick and you put it out in front of you to replicate the same piece. Now this is fairly conservative. Probably make this a little bit harder. And again, on day 1 when you're doing these, you want these to feel pretty drastic. So here's how I'd set this up, would be the opposite of back here. I put the stick in the bucket far enough forward, again, where I would never hit my hands. I typically put it about halfway, maybe a little bit farther than this down the shaft, so I'd never hit it with my hands. I would have went closer than that. And really the goal is to have the stick on an angle that's low enough where when you get to that follow through spot, it's just a couple inches above that is the goal with this. I put my shaft in front, roughly on my toe line, parallel to the ground. I have about an inch or two above the shaft between this stick and then the club. And my goal here is going to be, I want the club head working to the left past impact, again, to get rid of that draw pattern. So I'll take my normal setup. I'll just do a little half one here first. And that for me, again, feels a little bit more exaggerated. It's about a 5-yard cut. And this is what I want. If you're someone who hits hooks, you want to see some cuts. Like, you want to exaggerate some of these things, and you want to have the golf ball curving to the right. This shouldn't feel minor, especially on day 1. This should feel pretty exaggerated, and that gets the ball curving left to right for me pretty nicely. So those are the 3 practice stations that I would use. A bucket behind me, always number 1. I'd put the stick in number 2 and put this in front and see what works best for you. If you're a guy that hooks and you see the club's exiting way to the right past impact, you probably want to start with this one, get it working left. If it gets way inside early, you want to put this back here. Do one of those 2, exaggerate those 2, get your path back to normal first, hit some cuts. And And again, if you're trying to get rid of the hook, don't be afraid to hit a bunch of cuts in the beginning, exaggerate some slices so you can find middle ground. So hook pattern, your club face is too close, do something to get it back to neutral. Make sure your ball position's not too far back, and then fix the path with one of these stations or something similar to that, something inside here or out there. I hope that all makes sense. Don't forget to exaggerate these pieces in the beginning. Hope that all helps. Hey, I'm excited that you're watching this video. That tells me you watched through the training and you're an action taker. And ultimately, action takers become better golfers. Now, in this video, really, it's just the tip of the iceberg, right? A small thing to help you on the road to improving your biggest issue that's holding you back. Now, step one, I want you to try this and report back to me. Let me know how this worked. Send me a message on Instagram at Eric Cogorno. Send me a message here on Facebook. Let me know, did this solve your problem? Do you need a little bit more detail in a certain area? And really, ultimately, what I want to do is be able to share with you all of the things that I know and I've learned over the past 15 years of golfing. Listen, I've given probably over 20,000 lessons, and I golf just like you. I've had the same struggle, so I know what it's like to go out on Tuesday and play good and randomly have a swing tip that works, but then by the weekend that thing's gone and you're like, what the heck happened? I don't know why that went away. And a lot of times the solutions there are in the little nitty-gritty details, and it takes someone like me to be able to help you do that. So what I want to do is give you access to our online training program where you get access to all the things I've learned in those 20,000 lessons, all the things I've learned to go from beginner golfer to shooting under par consistently. And really, so I can help guide you through the process so you can get better faster, so you can learn the one or two key things to help you have solid contact that works good out here on the range and out in the golf course and shows up consistently. We've had over 1,000 members currently in our group who are in there just like you and me, whether you're looking to break 100. We've got a lot of players that do that, players who want to shoot around par, players who just want to hit the ball farther. Whatever it is, we have solutions for that. We have training programs to go for that, and I would love to give you access to that. So if you're interested in joining me, having me help you find your solutions, just click the link below for all the details.